Sometimes a game comes along and utterly gobsmacks you. You're excited for it, it looks good, and yet when you finally play it, everything comes together in such a way that it leaves you with an unshakable grin. That was my experience with Ninja Gaiden Ragebound, a new 2D entry in the long-running series from the developers of Blasphemous. And to be honest, I have little experience with Ninja Gaiden and no playtime with Blasphemous, but it didn't matter in the slightest. Even if you've never touched a Ninja Gaiden game before, Ragebound is legitimately one of the most fun action platformers I have ever played. Ragebound's story plays out concurrently with the original Ninja Gaiden. Players take control of Kenji, a young member of the Hayabusa clan and student to series protagonist Ryu. Their training is cut short with Ryu being summoned to America for the events of the original NES game, while Kenji must deal with an incursion of demons ransacking Hayabusa village. Eager to prove his worth, he sets out to find the source of the invasion and, in the process, finds himself bound to Komori, a member of the rival Black Spider Ninja clan. Only together can they put a stop to the demons as well as the shadowy plans of those who mean to use them. The story is fine. It serves its purpose of shuttling Kenji and Komori from location to location, but that's not to say it's boring. Kenji plays the hot-headed and steadfast youth well, while Komori makes for a fun rival, constantly emphasizing her own clan's more modern sensibilities. Naturally, the two form a friendship by the end of their journey, which is satisfying in its own way. But if anything stood out to me from the story, it was the set pieces. The way levels changed up as time went on kept me invested to the point that when I reached the finale, it felt like I was living out a ninja version of the Raiders of the Lost Ark chase through the desert. And a lot of that investment comes from the flow state that Ragebound was constantly able to put me in. The flow state of a player is something often talked about, but perhaps hard to define. Essentially, it's when I found myself so locked in that every action I took flowed into one another and I could lose myself in the pure gameplay. Ragebound excelled at that despite the relatively simple action on screen. Every enemy can be defeated with a single attack with the exception of large or armored ones. However, there's inevitably a normal enemy with a powered soul nearby. By defeating them, Kenji or Komori's next attack becomes hypercharged and immediately dispatches the obstacle. It's incredibly fun to just keep moving in Ragebound, slicing enemies that come your way, obtaining the hypercharge without stopping, and simply continuing your swath of death. And the way the options expand naturally led to me becoming more and more proficient at it. Kenji is a melee fighter with only his katana available. However, it can be used to deflect most projectiles and even perform an enemy bounce with what the game calls a guillotine boost. The damage is minimal, but it's fantastic for reaching higher areas, avoiding pits, or simply giving yourself some breathing room. Komori is all about kunai, able to throw them primarily in 4 directions, though certain moves allow for angled attacks. She too can perform the guillotine boost, making her action just as enjoyable as Kenji's. Both are given a set of levels to play on their own before they're forced to become allies, but rather than swapping between them, their essences are merged. Kenji is the dominant host, but with a simple press of a button, Komori will appear to throw her kunai. However, there is a limit to how many she can throw, as denoted by a pink bar beneath Kenji's health. This bar is refilled through special pickups scattered amongst each level, or by using Kenji's melee attacks. It creates a balance where I had to decide which was the more useful attack in each situation. And after the two are merged, the game plays into that as the powered souls of enemies can then become blue or pink. Blue means the hypercharge will only happen if killed by Kenji, and likewise pink for Komori's hypercharge. The hypercharge attack can still be done with either the katana or kunai, but accessing it requires the correct weapon. This then gets compounded at points later on when the bigger enemies have powered souls themselves, and there's several in a row, so it becomes a game of using the right weapon on the right enemy to keep the flow going, all the while normal enemies pour in to disrupt it. It never felt too difficult, and it's still possible to kill those bigger enemies with normal slashes, it just takes longer. And I found myself yearning to maintain the flow state of constantly moving and dispatching the hordes. The duo can also be powered up further thanks to Muramasa's shop. Here, Kenji can be augmented with abilities that allow him to recover more health, allow kill combos to unlock more hypercharges, or even make the game more challenging in exchange for a higher rank at the end of each level. Komori in turn can be equipped with a range of tertiary weapons, though to be honest, while they tended to be more powerful than her kunai, they used more energy, so I often forgot to use them. It's with Komori that 2 different Ragebound techniques can be equipped. These super moves are powered by performing hypercharges and can either do massive damage to all enemies on screen or the various bosses, or create a field where Kenji can be healed. And much like the tertiary weapons, I never actually used the healing aura because I love the damage output of the attacking Ragebound too much. But this equipment is also tied into Ninja Gaiden Ragebound's exploration. Within each level there are golden scarabs defined which act as a currency for Muramasa's shop. There's also skulls and scrolls that can be found which not only unlock more options for the shop, but secret missions with harder versions of existing levels to gain even more of these goodies. Some are more cleverly hidden than others, but I was able to find most just by looking out for suspicious walls or places I could roll under. There's also a few that require a certain rank in a level to unlock, which in turn encourages improved gameplay. I wouldn't call these upgrades necessary, as I often succeeded with the base equipment, but they're options that empower certain playstyles or offer opportunities to take on the levels completely differently. Replayability is a key point. I have no idea if there's a reward for earning an S rank in all 25 plus stages, but the game is so fun that I want to try. Just like I want to go back and complete all the challenges I failed the first time around. Every level features 3 challenges that range from defeating a certain number of enemies, a certain type of enemy, avoiding pits or death, or beating bosses in a set amount of time. This in turn increases your level rank and helps make each level feel more unique, as I approached each slightly differently based on the challenges at hand. And some of them are quite devious. Take for example Kumori's routes. At certain points Kenji can enter a demon altar and then allow Kumori the ability to travel along a hidden path. What makes them unique is that Kumori only has a limited time to be away from Kenji unless she strikes special items. Oftentimes these paths are meant to find hidden items or unlock doors, but in the secret missions, they are presented as platforming challenges. And they are downright devious at times, with me spending anywhere between 20 and 30 minutes trying to perfect the run in the later stages. And I would still fail the attached challenge, so I'll eventually need to return again if I want to complete everything. Make no mistake though that Ragebound feels like Ninja Gaiden. The duo can climb walls, wall jump, and hang from the ceiling, all the usual tricks from past games, along with a new dodge roll with limited invincibility. But the control is so smooth that, again, I found myself entering a flow state of destruction so naturally. Even taking hits didn't really disrupt it because, make no mistake, the game is challenging, though it's a modern challenge. Checkpoints are fair and lives are infinite. With enough tries, you will make it through a difficult section. But I also didn't find anything so difficult that I was left frustrated. I was always upset at my own inability rather than unfairness on the game's part. And that really comes to light with the boss battles. Almost every level ends with a boss, and they are incredibly varied and fun. Figuring out their tells and patterns became an enjoyable puzzle where dismantling them became the ultimate reward. Even the hypercharge states were used to good effect, leaving openings where major damage could be unleashed. Some are certainly easier than others, but they were a consistent highlight. I should also mention the normal enemy variety because, at first, it feels pretty limited. There's a point where it felt like I had seen them all because the same set just kept appearing. But then there's a story beat where even more enemy types become available, and from that point it feels like the brakes are off. It's odd that so many of the more unique types are for the last quarter of the game, but it did have the added effect of making it more exciting. And a lot of that excitement comes from the music. Simply put, this soundtrack is incredible. I don't think I've listened to such a consistently great soundtrack for a 2D game since Sonic Mania. Every song for every level just gets me pumped up and ready to go. It's energetic, bombastic, and memorable. I cannot recommend it enough. Graphically, the game looks great, pulling off its sprite style with aplomb and plenty of level variety. The game never wavered on PC, and while it may not possess the most memorable visual style, it's still a blast in the moment. There's also a decent amount of carnage, with limbs being severed and bodies being cut in twain. If that feels a bit too much for you though, there is an option to turn the blood effects off. I came into Ninja Gaiden Ragebound thinking it looked good and that I'd likely have fun. I didn't expect to come away as positive as I am. I had a fantastic time and just want to dive back into it to clean up what I missed the first time around. The main game with all but 2 of the secret missions took roughly 7 hours, but you can easily double that playtime thanks to the secrets and challenges, an alternate ending, and even an unlockable hard mode. Koei Tecmo declared 2025 the year of the ninja, and if Ninja Gaiden 4 can hit these heights, I'm inclined to believe them. Ninja Gaiden Ragebound is a fantastic example of the genre and completely deserving of a 9.5 out of 10. If you like action games, were ever curious about Ninja Gaiden, or are an old school fan, it's absolutely worth picking up. I'd love to hear if you too found yourself in consistent flow states while playing.